Welcome to Earth Mysteries. Today we're talking about dolmens. A dolmen is a very specific megalithic structure. It's made of a horizontal capstone with vertical stones holding it up and is also known as a portal tomb. Dolmens are found throughout the world. So our question has to be, why were they built on all these continents? And perhaps, what can they teach us about our lives today? Are you ready to travel? Let's go. So here we are. As I say, there are thousands of dolmens around the world. Most were originally covered with earth. And now the earth has dissolved away or been run away by the wind or the rain. So we see them as these stones standing alone. Now, many were used for burial. Some were used for spiritual inspiration. Others had a specific astronomical alignment. And then there were some that we think were used for power generation. We're going to look at all these different options. So first of all, we go to Korea, where 50% of the dolmens are found. They were built around the 5th century BCE, which is fairly modern, and we do know they were built for burial. But if you look at that very large capstone of over 200 tons, I'm not sure if I would want that over the top of me if I was being buried. But nevertheless, how did they lift such a large capstone to put it on those tiny legs? Now, some dolmens were also used as boundary markers. This comes from a special site up in Sligo in Ireland. And we see this in other places as well. Now, the entrance to a dolmen is often built over a specific magnetic and electrical anomaly in the earth, and this is true of many sacred sites. And such anomalies are caused by the flow of water, or where two water channels come together, aquifers come together, or maybe there's a change in the magnetic structure of the soil. Different soil constitutions come together and create this magnetic anomaly. Or maybe they're on a peninsula or an island. So we see this in many sacred sites, and specifically again, we see the entrance being built for the dolmen at this place. So this is Serpent Mound. It's a beautiful mound, and this isn't necessarily a dolmen, but I wanted to show that these energies attract into themselves these powerful dragon energies that combine with the energy of the air. So whoever built these dolmens or built such mounds knew about the importance of the energy within the earth to meet the energy of the air. You could say heaven and earth coming together to create changes, whether it's within ourselves or within the fertility of the land. And they also knew that there was a pulsing effect that could be created by changing the shape of the dolmen, maybe changing the shape of how the vertical stones were aligned. And also they found that by using different stones, it also changed the energy flowing within the dolmen itself. And this piezoelectric energy that was created, they knew would change fertility, as I say. It changed the germination of their seeds. So perhaps you would place a seed in there during the winter months and wait till the sun was at a certain height, knowing that that would then affect the energy within the dolmen to enhance your seed germination. They also understood that if you were within a dolmen and maybe the sun was at a certain stage, and we know that these earth energies are heightened in the morning, that you would sit in there as the sun rose and it would change and alter your state of consciousness. And I had that experience myself when I sat inside this tiny dolmen, the Tasenk dolmen in Gozo, and what I found was that the energy itself was actually activating my pineal gland and opening my crown chakra, changing and expanding my consciousness. And we feel that there's many functions perhaps to each dolmen. It wasn't just for one thing. Now this is one of many Irish dolmens known as Polnabrun in the County Clare in Ireland. These dolmens in Ireland were often known as stone tables or giants' graves. And you could see it's a sort of a table for a giant. But I think what's important for us to understand that all or most of these dolmens were covered by mounds of earth or stones known as a cairn. So even though we're seeing them standing proud above the land as it is, the surface of the earth as it is, that's not how they were originally built. So again, it gives us a sense of these are very ancient, because if you imagine how high the mound had to be and then being worn away by the wind and the rain, how long did that take to happen? And now we're seeing it as it is. So this is why we call them often portal tombs or even mounds. Going back to my idea of the serpent mound, these mounds were very important to many indigenous people as representing the sort of sacred mountain, as they called it, or how we would bring heaven onto earth. Many temples, pyramids, mounds were all designed to kind of represent that relationship between the skies and the earth. Now, Polnabrun was used as a burial site around 3,800 BCE, but as I always like to say, it doesn't mean that that's why it was created. Just because you found a body in there doesn't mean that was why it was built for that. In fact, we often say that a portal tomb could also be a portal womb. In other words, a place of birth, not just a place of death. And this particular dolmen lies on limestone blocks and channels, as you can see here. So was it possible that at certain times of the year, the consciousness of the earth was fertilized by the consciousness of the sun, and that new consciousness that was created then flowed along this channel across the world? We find these channels in so many different places, almost like energy lines, you could say, the same as your body, this etheric web that lives within your body. Could it be that these certain times of the year allowed that etheric web to wake up and to fertilize and to realize this new consciousness? Now, the horizontal capstone often slopes at an angle, and some people would say, well, it's just because the earth underneath has shifted and it originally was totally horizontal. But is that true? Is this purposeful, and was it perhaps aligning to the sun's rays? And we could go to places like Listergill and Carramore in Ireland, and here you see the capstone, and if you look over the top of the capstone, you can actually see that the position of the sunrise changes and over the Ballygowrie Mountains. And so you could literally say there's a story that takes place as the sunrise moves and then moves back again, and that different parts of that story show us a time of maybe going back into the darkness of winter and then being reborn back into the world again after the solstice. And here's another fascinating place, this one particularly with the entrance aligned to the sunrise on the winter solstice. This is similar to New Grange, where within that portal tomb, that portal womb, sits earth energies, waiting for that new sun and its rays to permeate, penetrate that deep, dark place that was the dolmen. This was built about 3000 BCE. And again, we don't know if it was older than this time. This is our original ideas. But the idea of the sun meeting the earth energies has the consciousness of new beginnings. If we look at it in another way, this particular dolmen is made up of granite stones, and nearby are stones that represent a serpent, a dragon, which are very much representations of these earth energies. Is that what they were trying to tell us? And there we go to Cornwall, Trevicoit, the giant's house. See again that sloping roof. And what we know is the mound that you see there probably came much further up and actually covered those vertical stones. It's again known as a portal tomb. And in this particular dolmen, we see a blocking stone. What does that mean? A huge stone, as you can see, that actually blocks the entrance, and it's found in other dolmen. And you can see there's a very small entrance. So was that saying that if you're going to enter into this place, you have to become very small and perhaps let go of your ego and enter with humility? Or maybe the entrance was so small so it kept the energy inside. But certainly this wasn't about just walking in. This was about bending down. And again, imagine that whole area, that whole structure covered by a mound. And then there's this tiny hole. And people do not know what that hole's about. Was it an astronomical observation hole? Or maybe it was a soul hole. And what's a soul hole? It was allowing the soul to pass out of the physical body, out of that three-dimensional energy, and pass through that hole into other worlds via the Milky Way. And we see these holes in other structures, very purposefully designed. And so here we see another representation of a soul hole. And this is in the Caucasus, where there are over 3,000 dolmens. We believe they were built around between 2000 and 3000 BCE. And there again, that small hole, that small spirit or soul hole, allowing the spirit to enter and leave. And it's said from that culture that when we are in a place of sensory deprivation, so you actually seal that hole, you're able to communicate with the cosmos much more effectively. And many places have that same quality. You enter in, you go into the darkness, you go into the silence. And it's in that silence that you actually can communicate, but more importantly, you actually leave behind the outer world. And therefore you are able to enter into your light body, into your spirit body, and communicate more freely. And these places were often seen as places of healing, fertility, inspiration. And one of the reasons for that it was said that a sage, a wise person, would enter each dolmen, and they say 10,000 years ago, and that this sage would step into their etheric body, stepping out of their physical body, and then would, seal the hole. And then they would wait until people arrived who were awakening, and they would come and ask for help. And this really reminds us that every stone is a stone person, a spirit being, every mountain, every tree, and that these stones contain not just information that we can say, give me the information, but much more of an informing of ourselves, to remind us who we are, to resonate with our wholeness, so that when we listen to the spirits of the stones, we're really listening to the spirits of the cosmos and reminding us of our star beingness. So the question is, are you ready to listen? Are you ready to listen to the sage? Are you ready to awaken? I know there will be dolmens in the area where you live, or maybe they're just ones in your imagination. You can travel there anytime. And when you do, stop, let go, and listen. Until next time, bye-bye now.